Want to watch me turn my boring, old, dreary office into a dope, modern, sensory playroom? Well, it's coming right up. And don't be shy about sharing this, y'all. I need y'all to share it. Share. Everyone you know, share it. What's up, tribe, and welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for joining me again. If you are new here, my name is Mariah, and in today's video, I am transforming my boring old office into this amazing playroom. As you can see, there's nothing special about my office. It just has a simple desk and a computer and a couch in it. It's actually part of a larger studio space, but for this front area, I figured I would transform that into a space that our kids could enjoy, especially as I work in my studio. But seriously, it's boring, basic, so unseasoned. It's just blah, depressing. First thing I had to do was clear out and clean, which luckily there wasn't a lot to begin with in the room, but that couch was super hard and heavy to get out of the room. Then I had my husband put up some temporary screening so that I could open up for painting and of course the prepping process, which by the way is my least favorite part of any DIY. But I overall just hated the color of these walls. They're all over my house, has the same paint color, and I really wanted to add some pops in there and generally just brighten the space. Went out to Lowe's, got myself a paint sprayer. Didn't know how to use it, have never used one in my life, and of course laid down all the draping and all the sheets. The paint sprayer took a little bit for me to get used to using and to narrow down how I could actually apply the paint in the most efficient way. But once I got that part down, it was actually quite enjoyable. Like, I never want to paint anything else large without a paint sprayer. However, I did have to deal with a lot of overspray, so if you wind up using a paint sprayer, just keep that in mind. This project was truly a labor of love. I mean, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the cuts, the scrapes, the rug burn, the frustrations it caused. Yeah, true labor of love, but 100% worth it. It also came with these cool paint lining bags that made it super easy to save paint for the next day. I also love that this paint only really required me to put on 2 coats for full coverage. And then all that was left was the touch-up work after I removed the painter's tape. My whole goal with these color choices was to really just make this space brighter while adding some vibrance in there. I can't stand when I enter a space and it looks just so melancholy and just dreary, and my house only gets but so much light inside, so I wanted to maximize how much bounce lighting I would be able to use just from the light coming in from the windows and door. Painting always seems fun and like a good idea in theory until you actually go to do it on a larger space. I mean, it took days just for me to get the number of coats and just the full coverage that I actually needed. By the time I was done doing the painting, I didn't want to see a paint can or a paint brush for weeks. A lot of you may be wondering why I just didn't use the paint sprayer everywhere. It was purely because I knew at that point that the overspray would more than likely travel to the other side of the room that I had already painted and would leave a bunch of white speckles everywhere. If I had to do it all over again, I would just wind up using some tape and some plastic to cover the green wall.
The future looks bright.
Next, I wanted to create a magnetic wall that was also a chalkboard wall, so I went ahead and grabbed some magnetic paint, and this paint is super watery. You have to apply it with sponge or foam applicator brushes, and it runs so much that I needed to apply it with a really small brush so that I could really control how much paint was being absorbed. So that's why this painting process on this particular wall took quite a long time. I wanted to make sure I got the smoothest, most flat application possible, and the the roller was leaving everything super textured. So the brush I was using was about the size of a saltine cracker, so you can imagine how long that was taking. Then I figured out that I could actually use the roller, but instead of rolling it, I started dragging it down the wall to apply it in the most flat way. And I had to apply like 7 coats of this stuff too.
The future looks bright.
Then we head back to the greenery wall. Along with color, I wanted to add a texture to this room. While I could have used wallpaper for this, it just didn't sit the same way. I've seen a lot of greenery wallpaper and it never looks quite lifelike, so I figured I would go with this greenery, but it was definitely a lot of work. Snapping each of the individual tiles together was very time consuming and also a little bit painful for the joints of my hands. I had some old greenery that I had already used, so I had to cut off all the zip ties and then reattach them, and then I ordered that was already used from Amazon, so I also had to vacuum and clean out of a lot of it too. Putting it up on wall, 2-person job. It was very heavy, and then not only did we have to put it up, but we had to attach all of it to the wall. You can't just attach it from the top or the bottom. You literally have to go in individually and tack them to the wall, which is very, very time consuming, but when it's done right, it's very satisfying. So that's what you see us doing here, is trimming it to make sure it fits the exact measurements to not be bulky and bold over top of the molding, as well as just making sure that the vent holes were cut out. And then, like I said, tacking it all down, which as you can see was just a very time consuming process. But by the time it was all done, it was so worth it. Then I went ahead and picked up these lights from IKEA. I like them better than the typical LED lights because they don't have that dotted look to them, and they also can be controlled via an app, but I figure a little bit of mood lighting would add a different feel to the room overall. Then it was time to move on to the opposing wall, which I chose to do paneling for. This wall is about 20 feet long, so it was no small job, although I definitely underestimated how difficult it would be. I initially started out in the corner because I figured, yeah, if I can go corner to corner, it's going to be easy. The tiles are going to line up. In reality, the tiles didn't line up because I found out through measuring that the wall is super warped. So I took the tiles down, shifted gears, and started from the middle. I also have to say that I wish these tiles came in larger panels. They're about 19 inches and some change by 19 inches. I would have loved if they would have came in blocks of like 3 feet, because that would have made my life a lot easier. Also, this Gorilla Glue, I have never fell in love with an adhesive more. It is durable while being forgiving. You have like 10 minutes to move each tile if you really, really need to. And through using it, I learned that, you know, some of my projects can be a little bit easier. I could just use this adhesive and completely simplify things. The only thing with this adhesive is you do have to do a good job of cleaning up the edges. You want to get it as flat and as mesh to each tile and the wall as possible. Otherwise, it creates these little ridges and just complicates things.
You ain't on my level, then you, I'm getting tired. 똑같은 질투, 너 높이 올라와. 공기도 달라, so high. I don't see you, you talking to just, yeah, I feel it. Mean I spit like a villain. It's getting boring, no, 매력 없는 너. 너를 원해, 에이. 내 맘대로 할래, yeah. 그렇게 보지 마, 어쨌든 나는 나. 그래.
Then it was time to actually work on the bottom, tops, and sides of the wall, and this is where things got sticky. We took plenty of trips to Lowe's. We bought a few different tools as well as different saws, blades, attachments, grinders, sanders, and eventually we settled on a table saw to get the best and smoothest cut. But even that wasn't enough. Our wall is super warped to the point where we had to keep shaving it down in certain areas just so that it would custom fit. It was not as simple as just cutting a angled or even straight line. It was literally like the smallest ridge would keep the tile from adhering to the wall properly, which is why you see us going back and forth so much with the same exact tile. But eventually we figured it out, nailed it down, and were able to complete this wall. Both of us agreed, however, if we had to do it all over again, we would probably A, start out with the table saw, and B, consider a smaller wall.
Get on my lap, put it on that, put that up your back and you get, yeah. 너를 원해, 내 맘대로 할래, yeah. 그렇게 보지 마, 어쨌든 나는 나, 그래도 나는 도도해, 항상 do my thing. 사랑은 지겨워, yes, boring. 특히 우리 사랑은 힘겨워. It's boring, I'm yawning, I'm done with talking. I'm getting bored.
Then for the outlets, we just pretty much used some scrap wood and made a little box of our own. We could order one, but those didn't work for our wall. Now we're back to the other side of the room, and my whole vision was to create not only some toy storage, but also a bench that could be used later on as a reading nook or as a tabletop to play on. So this is me basically building out that bench because I wanted to originally use IKEA Kallax shelving, but the dimensions did not work for what I had envisioned. It just did not work with the concept at all. I tried Wayfair, I tried so many different places to find exactly what I needed, and I couldn't find it, so I figured that I would pretty much buy some other things and DIY it myself. Went to Lowe's, got 2 boards, painted them, and then bought these cube bookshelves, or I guess they're not really for any type of shelving, but they're the floating wall shelves. Figured I would just buy those and literally glue everything together with the Gorilla Glue. And this worked perfectly. It was really hard to find a bench or any bookshelf that I could even turn sideways that was exactly 85 inches. Well, it's more like almost 86. But around 85 inches, so it was way easier to just build it myself.
Silhouettes in the neon lights, see my reflection in your eyes. Maybe it's love, or maybe the wait is over. Gonna dance on the floor all night, make the most of this one lifetime. It's feeling like love, all the wait is over.
And we're back to the magnetic wall, and it's time for chalkboard paint. Same deal with this. Although the paint was a little bit thicker, I had to use a unconventional tool. This is actually a tool that's just meant for pretty much like the edges and corners, but it allowed me to spread the paint in a really fine, thin layers and build it up versus having these super thick roller marks with a whole lot of texture to it. And it actually left a really nice finish. I was a tiny bit sad to have to do this next step, which is seasoning. But I designed this wall so it would be a space for magnetic learning tools as well as a place that children could physically draw on. We tell our kids all the time not to draw on the walls. I figured if I gave a designated place for it, it would give a little bit more freedom, a larger surface area, and also satisfy that itch to draw on the walls. I also decided to add some more strip lighting here so that at night the wall as well as the rest of the room would have this really outdoor, moody beer garden kind of vibe to it. Although I gotta say, I wish they made these lights in longer strips. Then it was time to put up room decor, which is probably the easier part of the process because I have been collecting things over several months for this. So this was like getting more fun at this point because the room was finally coming together. This project took roughly almost 4 months to accomplish, and that's just due to time. We were working on limited time. Most of the time I was staying up until the wee hours of the morning or working during nap times. Even on weekends, someone had to be with the baby while I got things done, and I also still wanted to spend time with him as well, so most of it was still done during nap time. So this was work of mostly a couple of hours out of the day for, like I said, roughly 4 months. Next we have the height chart, which I figure would be as simple as ordering stencils and then spray painting it. But in doing this process, I definitely learned that stencils and spray paint are not always the best route or the easiest. The height chart was generally just a lot of trial and error. I tried everything from paint to Sharpies and nothing seemed to be working out, and I had the idea suddenly to use wood instead. I went to art school, I've used wood for various projects before, and I was like, you know what? Let's just make it 3D. Instead of me continuously struggling with this stencil and trying to use sponges to apply paint, let's just scratch that idea completely and do something that is more three-dimensional. Of course, I painted it as well as the numbers to go on it because we gotta, stay with the theme of the room. But this was definitely one of those love-hate parts of the project. One of my favorite parts was the incorporation of the swing. I don't know, there's something just so whimsical about having a swing indoors. I also knew that it wasn't going to be practical to have it down all the time, so I made sure that we incorporated a hook that it could be put away. Now this is probably not my favorite part, but it was a good solution to work with what I had. We are currently not able to rip up and redo our whole carpet. It goes down the steps and into the other studio space as well. So if we ripped up some of it, all of it was going to have to be ripped up. We also didn't know what was under the carpet, so that's a project that we're saving for another time. In the meantime, I got some rugs and they were a good temporary solution to add some brightness and contrast to the space, as well as generally just make it more comfortable. These rugs are super plush and fluffy, whereas the carpet is hard country and gave me lots of rug burn. Initially, I had planned on putting a full-size couch in just without the legs, something that he could still climb up on easily, like the one that's in my studio space, but after a little bit more consideration, I figured I would get a couch that was convertible into a bed. Plus, it's much softer and his exact size. Overall, I really love the way that the wall as well as the toy storage came together. I mean, I feel like I did enough with the room without doing too much with it to where it's completely like sensory overload, but I like that each toy has its own little space and I'm able to use the various nooks and crannies in the room without it being overwhelming. Overall, the goal was to make a really dope play space, but also make it super comfy, and also for it to be like the favorite room of the house, which it obviously currently is. And here is the final reveal of the room. I love the way it turned out. I love the toy storage. Everything has a place. It's colorful without being sensory overload. I like the various angles and textures that are in the room that play off of each other. Of course, I'll be adding things as time goes on, but for now, this is definitely the perfect space for him.
Universal burst of love. Falling into gravity, I live it in your galaxy. You don't think you're made of stars, but to me, that's what you are. Sparks fly when I'm looking back at you. Shots fired, do you feel the same thing too?
Well guys, that's all for this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite part of the process was and how you think the whole space came together. And don't be shy about sharing this, y'all. I need y'all to share it. Share, 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 share. Everyone you know, share it. I'm also going to be doing a reveal to Rain to see what his reaction is and how he's gonna like this new play space. So definitely stay tuned for that. I am sending you all positive vibes, sprinkles of baby dust. I hope you all are having a wonderful and amazing week, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next video. Bye.